So what it says is, for each description, identify the correct domain of each function. Domain refers to all the what? All the x's. So all the inputs, all the independent variables, whatever you want to call it. So first they tell us g of x describes the graph of g of x equals 2 times x plus 1. So this, you could graph it, you can put it in Desmos. I'm telling you right now, if I were to distribute the two, it would give me this, which I know is a linear equation. When you type linear equations in Desmos, how does that look? Does it go on forever? Yes, no. It does. If you typed in this exact equation in Desmos and it just gives you the equation, doesn't tell you anything else, you'll get a line that goes on forever. It looks like, let's just actually look at it. All right, so g of x, or I'll just use y because I don't want to go back to my computer. And it was 2 parentheses x plus 1. All right. Okay, so you see it, it gives you a line, and if you zoom out, that line goes on forever. So if domain's referring to all the x's, will this line eventually go all the way to the left? Will it touch all the way to the left, or does it just stop at some point? It keeps going, so there's no boundary on the left. Then since domain is left to right, all the x's look to the right. Does it have any sort of like boundary the more I go to the right? Yes, no. So then it goes on forever, left and right. When that happens, what's my domain gonna be? What do we call it when it goes on infinitely? There's no boundary at all. All real numbers is what we call that. So for the first one, if it's just an equation, you look at it, it goes on forever in that direction, then all real numbers. Now, function a of b gives the number of dog treats for every b bags. We're talking about domain, our input. So in this situation, is my input going to be b bags, like number of bags, or like the cost for them? Or actually, it's number of dog treats being compared for every b bags. If I was graphing this, what would go on my x-axis? Number of dog treats or number or b bags? Bags. So because it gives you the b in parentheses, that must be your input. And it looks like the number of dog treats depends on how many bags you're looking at. All right, so what's a possible number of bags? Could I have a negative number of bags? So we're gonna probably choose one of the ones that say non-negative. Can it be like a decimal of a bag? So then don't pick any that say real numbers. Okay, real numbers would suggest it can be a decimal or a fraction. So then based on what I just told you, what answer should it be for that one? Well, could I have 11 bags? Yeah. Doesn't limit me to just 10 in that one. So in that one, the best answer is going to be non-negative integers. Because real numbers could be fractions and decimals. And we already said you can't have a decimal over that. Make sense? So integers, by the way, are whole numbers, but it's just weird that they don't just say whole numbers. Integers could be positive or negative, but this one says non-negative. Okay, so no decimals for that one. All right, so then the next one. We have an equation. You could graph it, see what it looks like. I'll show you, because you probably don't know what that looks like, since we haven't learned that yet. But I get x squared plus 2x plus 3. X squared plus 2x plus 3. Okay, so you guys see the graph? What it looks like? And it's asking about the domain. So the domain is what axis that we're looking at? So look from left to right, see if there's any boundaries. So this is a U-shaped graph, and can you see, like, as we go up, it keeps getting like a little bit wider, and that will continue the more we go up. So will this line eventually touch all the x's to the left? Will it touch all the x's to the right? So what's my domain gonna be then? If there's no boundary, no limit, all real numbers for that one. And then function C of D gives the cost of renting a kayak for D hours up to a maximum of 10 hours. So what's my input, the cost or the hours? Hours. Time is usually the input, not always, but usually. And we're asking about the domain. So we're asking about possible number of hours. So could it be, well, they're charging you for each hour. So even if you went like half an hour, they're still charging you for the hour. And it's a maximum of up to 10 hours. So based on that information, what's going to be my answer for this one? From these options? Whole numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. So there you go. I know technically you can have a fraction of an hour, but this graph, they're only charging you an hour increments. So even if you're there for an hour and a half, they're charging you for 2 hours. So whole number from 1 to 10. Questions on that? Questions on any others? We might have time for one more before we have to play.
Number 3 on.
These are the consecutive response. Okay.
So
So number 3 is kind of a big one. We'll see what we can get through of. Since we just did domain and range, maybe we'll not do that part, maybe we'll do that. So here's number 3 on your constructed response. The cost for dog sitting is $2 per hour for the first 3 hours. After 3 hours, the cost is $12 no matter how long the dog stays. The function C gives the total cost for watching the dog for H hours. Is function C a piecewise function? Yes or no? Okay, why do you say no? Okay, so yes or no then? What makes something a piecewise function? We learned that yesterday. I had to write it down. Piecewise functions. Lauren? And there's different intervals, and what about those intervals? So here's how to summarize that in a way that you probably will all understand. So you would say yes for this one because there are different rules or expressions because there are different rules for different parts of the domain. And domain would be all the what in a function? All the x's, so you could even rephrase that. There's different rules for different parts of the inputs. And if you look at the graph, on the x-axis is hours. So when you look at it, there's different rules for different hours of dog sitting. So if you summarize the rules, for the first 3 hours, how much are they charging? So we read, for the first 3 hours, how much are they charging? Well, that would be 3 hours exactly. So like for 1 hour, $2, or 2 hours, 3 hours. What's the rate? $2 an hour. So like this expression can be used for the first 3 hours. That's the rule. And then for above 3 hours, and it doesn't give you a limit. On your test, there will be a limit, like a maximum of this many hours, but on this one, there's not. Above 3 hours, what are they charging?
$4.
$12 no matter what, not $12 per hour, just $12. So that's 2 different rules for different parts of the domain, for different hours. So yeah, that's a piecewise function. To graph it, I mean, just start kind of inputting values. When it's 0 hours, how much are they paying? $0. And then probably, let me leave that off for a second. When it's 1 hour, how much are they charging? $2. So for 1 hour, it's gonna be $2. At $2, how much are they charging? $4. At 3 hours, how much are they charging? Well, no. When it's 3 hours, it's still the $2 per hour. After the 3 hours, that is something different. But for 3 hours, what does it cost? Guys, you're not gonna have time to quiz. You're gonna have to say your option. If you don't answer my question. At 3 hours, how much does it cost? $6. Now, above 3 hours, so everything after 3 hours, it costs what? 12. So we know at 3 hours, it costs $6. So to show for above 3 hours, I'll go up to the 12 and I'll put an open circle. And above 3 hours, it's $12 no matter what. So I can put a line for that one. Should I put a line for this part? Is it a different price if it's only half an hour that they're staying, or are they still gonna charge them the $2? I'm not asking you any math, I'm asking you like common sense, real world stuff. Is it gonna be a different price if they go 1.5 hours? No, they're gonna charge them still $4, because that's now into an hour. It's like that parking lot question on your practice. Like, if you're there for just some of the time, it's still within that hour range, they're gonna charge you whatever the price is for the hour. All right, so I would just leave it like that, separate dots. I would not connect them. So they're not charging anything other than the 2 times it, okay? But above this, it would look like that because it is all of these. So questions on that? All right, so then go to Schoology. You want to close all your tabs or else it'll make you start all over. But the password is function, capital F. You can use your notes. Make sure your phone stays in your backpack. If I see it anywhere other than your backpack, your test is 0.